Hey everyone. Hey Jayden, how are you?
Hi, Diana. I'm good, thank you. How you doing?
I'm great. Welcome everyone to On the Flip Side. Every Monday, I host an episode of either mindset or anything in real estate, any topic that we want to talk about. My name is Diana, and today's guest speaker is Jayden. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about investing in the environmentally conscious housing solutions in Ontario. So excited to hear about what you have to say about it. Would you like us to let's before actually we get started on that topic, let's just tell the viewers a little bit about you, your experience in that area, whatever you'd like to share.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So I have been in the energy conservation space for about 15 years. I started and founded a group of companies in 2008 that focused and revolved around energy conservation, navigating government rebates and energy incentives, and then the implication and implementation, of energy conservation projects. So for the last 15 years, I've kind of been sharpening my sword with large developers, big companies like Minto, Tridel, Brookfield, Oxford, and helping them implement energy efficient solutions in some of their building practices. My background has been high performance new construction for the last 15 years, and I'm now taking that passion and rolling it into this missing middle opportunity that's presented itself in the province of Ontario right now.
Awesome. And so what is that opportunity that you'd like to share with us? Tell us exactly what it is and how
Yeah,
you
so
are incorporating it into the investing world.
Yeah, so like a couple of years ago, they started in the city of Toronto, which is where I live, and I do all of my real estate investing. They started rolling out laneway suite programs, which presented investors a really, really unique opportunity to kind of take advantage of like the highest and best use of their land and the highest and best use of capital. So, for those of you who have not heard about laneway suite programs, it just allowed individuals and investors to build auxiliary dwelling units on the rear of their property and unlock some density in a city that is technically going through a housing crisis right now. By doing so, you were able to build relatively affordable housing solutions, and there was great returns on them from an investment standpoint. If you were an end user, you were able to add density maybe for your kids or for in-laws to live on your property. And it really unlocked and opened up a lot of unusable land in the city of Toronto. Um, Back in May of this calendar year, there was amendments to the zoning bylaw and some municipal changes that actually targeted Toronto to unlock more density. And now they're allowing fourplexes as of right, where there used to be single family homes. So you may hear me reference the missing middle a handful of times throughout this presentation. The missing middle is that creation of light density in neighborhoods where it's typically been dominated by single family homes, high barriers to entry for costs. But I mean, the indicators are showing us that that's where people want to live in. I think that there has been a bit of an escape from the concrete boxes in the sky that we see in the city, and people want to be in more neighborhoods. So, hence, this expression and this term missing middle is now getting thrown around a lot in the real estate space. So, what I have been focusing on is creating green missing middle housing solutions. And I want to talk about why the government rebates around that topic and some of the energy initiatives and government initiatives are making it a much more profitable and a much more lucrative opportunity for real estate investors.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there is tons of great opportunity. And I just feel like we're all moving in that direction of how that we can help our societies in like a green aspect and making sure that we can reduce our carbon footprint or whatever in any area, reduce, our footprint in general as much as we can. So what are the initiatives that you would like to, which one would you like to start with?
As we talk about green investing and green housing solutions, I think that there's predominantly three P's that we focus on. The first is planet, obviously, like you just talked about, and we could talk about some of the environmental impacts. The second is people, you're starting to see a little bit more of a consciousness kind of be birthed, and people want to be helping the environment either for their own personal reasons or to help. Bottom line. And then the third P is profit, which is, really what I think investors want to be focused on. Why is it more profitable to invest in green real estate? I think that people understand the first two Ps, planet and people, but I really want to dive into the government rebates and the initiatives and why it's more profitable to invest in green developments and green projects. So, as far as our conversation today, I wanted to talk about a little bit about who we are, River Developments, why the city of Toronto is presenting such a unique opportunity for investors, why now is such an important time to get into this space. We can talk a little bit about what the missing middle is, and then the benefits of green investing.
Awesome. Sounds good.
And feel free to jump in at any points. I sometimes tend to talk fast or ramble on because I'm super passionate about this space. So if there's anything that I'm saying or any acronyms, please jump in. I think I mentioned my background is not in real estate. My background is in energy conservation. And for the last 15 years, I have kind of forged a career in navigating complicated and convoluted government rebates and initiatives. And I always tell people, listen, if it was easy to get government money, I wouldn't have a job. So I've kind of taken that passion about government rebates and available funds and rolled it into real estate investing, right? So my background has been high performance new construction and really focusing on green alternatives to multifamily housing solutions and how investments in that kind of infrastructure or some of these conservation measures can really pay off dividends in the future. Any questions on that?
No, sounds clear. Sounds good. Love your initiative. And I think it'd be, great to just get into it and actually what it is or how, you were saying, even just about, because you're right. I think it's great to have initiatives in, helping the environment, helping people. But when we're running a business, it is important to maintain the business. You do need to make profits. So I think it'd be awesome to hear your parallel between how we can make things green, because I think a lot of us are always wanting to help people or the planet in any way, and just understanding where the guidelines sit so that we can do it in a way where we're able to still run our businesses and continue growing. Because as we grow, we can always continue to improve other areas like that, like the environment, right? It's just, so I think that balance is so important, and having that clarity also helps people to just understand that you can have a business, but you can also help too.
Yeah, I think here's why I've always liked the energy conservation space is because it is sold on the fundamentals of the financial impacts. Typically, I've sat down and worked with CEOs, CFOs, and controllers of very, very large run corporations here in Canada and the United States. And how they make their decisions with their business are based on returns on investment, returns on equity, internal rates of return. So they actually use these financial markers to determine what a good project to take on is. And how we would present these opportunities to investors and the heads of these companies is we would create an executive summary full of 10 projects that they could do. Well, they always would focus on the projects that had the shortest returns on investment and the highest internal returns, right? Because they would say to themselves, why would I spend $100,000 on a project that has a 10-year ROI when I can spend that same amount of money on a project that has a 1-year ROI? So one of the things that's always attracted me about the energy space and the energy conservation space is, sure, the planet and the people. But the second is that it really operates like a financial instrument. And the decisions become really, really crystal clear once you have an engineer lay out the financial impacts of these projects. So a couple of years ago, we spotted an opportunity in the Toronto landscape to build energy efficient housing solutions focused around government rebates and energy initiatives because they were providing cash flow positive real estate in a city that hadn't seen that in 6 or 7 years. Anybody that is investing in Toronto real estate is typically doing it based on this idea that the asset's going to appreciate. You're in a world-class city. Toronto has all these economic kind of markers that support a really, really good investment strategy. However, they've typically been done at a cash flow negative position, and people are okay with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, how typical is it for people to buy pre-construction condos in Toronto and be losing hundreds of dollars every month, if not more, just to own real estate in Toronto, right?
100%. Yeah, I think I always like to say that's the GTA mentality, really. It's all about appreciation. I don't think it's normal actually I don't think it's normal, especially outside, even more not normal, like outside of the real estate investor world, even more, it's not normal to think of cash flow. You're always thinking of that future prospect of what will come out of it.
Right. And like, listen, like, I don't want to sound and regurgitate everything that everybody reads about real estate, but real estate is simple. You know, it's supposed to be relatively easy. And I say that because, like, a lot of the books do kind of recycle the same theories and the same kind of catchphrases. But listen, real estate that is not cash flow positive does not make sense to me personally. It needs to be turning over some kind of monthly cash flow. Otherwise, you just have like a really low paying job. And I think that it is speculative and real estate speculation just to buy something based on this idea that one day the equity is going to increase by way of asset appreciation. Mm-hmm. Somebody said you can't eat equity, and you can't eat equity. So if you're going to be investing your hard-earned money into real estate, it needs to be cash flowing. So let me rewind it. Let me rewind it, right? So we find these opportunities by way of government rebates, energy rebates, government initiative, and municipal policy changes that have now created this cash flow opportunity. So for the first time in a long time, we are able to own real estate in Toronto proper, in the city of Toronto, and it cash flows. And it's this, beautiful mix of missing middle initiatives that are being offered by the government, energy rebates and energy initiatives that are being offered by the government. And frankly, the fact that we're in the middle of a housing crisis and Ontario is still an incredibly attractive landing place for the world to not only invest, but look at the refugees that we bring in, look at the immigrants that we bring in annually. I think 400,000 people come to Canada, and the lion's share of those go to Ontario. I mean, the city of Toronto right now, like, as if I have to tell people why to invest in Toronto. Listen, Toronto is hot, one of the hottest real estate markets in the world. It is the third largest population behind LA and New York. And it is the second highest rent that you can collect as a landlord, only behind New York City. Like, back in March, I think we just broke $2,500 for a 1-bedroom apartment, right? So like, Toronto has all the indicators from an investment standpoint as to why you want to own single family or multi-family rental units, right?
100%.
What it has lacked, however, is housing solutions for investors. I mean, like, investors either have to buy fully built duplexes or triplexes, and those are incredibly expensive and run at a cash flow deficit. They'll have to buy single family homes, which also have high barriers to entry because of cost, and they are cash flow negative, or condos. And unfortunately, I just don't see the latter, like condominiums, holding their value over a long enough period of time. And if there is any kind of corrections in the market, those are the first things to kind of correct themselves. And again, they're usually cash flow negative. As they're selling for $1,500 a square feet or a square foot in the city of Toronto, they're not very attractive investments for me.
Yeah, 100% agree. And so with the missing middle, what are so far because like you said, I think everything is new right now, all these different incentives and everything that are coming out. What is like your favorite ones that you've seen so far that you think are going to be pivotal to just making, like you said, the cash flow work? Because I know like that, I feel like a lot of people even just don't think about like that cash flow even exists in Toronto?
Yeah, so like I listened to a podcast about 6 months ago, and it was from two friends of mine that are running a fairly successful podcast focused around Canadian real estate. And the premise of their conversation was like the Burr method is dead. I think we're all familiar with like buying, renovating, refinancing, renting, repeating, or whatever those R's are. Because I think this idea that you can add value to real estate with a mop, a paintbrush, and a local handyman, it's gone. It's a concept that no longer works on account of the fact that real estate is so expensive. So the opportunity does not lie in buying a triplex and fixing it up. The opportunity does not lie in buying a single family home and adding some light renovations to increase rents. The costs are just too high for that single family home. The real value in real estate and from an investment standpoint, where you're going to make money is adding dwellings, adding additional units.
100%.
And it has been very, very hard to do that in the city of Toronto for the last 20 or 30 years. There's expensive development charges. There's lengthy permit process. All of that has changed recently. So if you were to ask me if we were having a drink at a cafe or grabbing a coffee and you said, where's the best place to invest money? It is adding additional dwellings on single family homes. Buying single family homes, I believe that the highest and best use of capital and land is converting them to 5-door rental units. And that's exactly what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
That's awesome. And for that approach, and that sounds like with the possibility of some of those being a part of the additional dwelling that would actually be built, right? So you'd be doing something like 3 on the existing house and then the laneway house, let's say 2. Is that something like, is that like a possibility, or can a laneway only be one unit?
Yeah, so as of right now, the way that the like rules and the program rules are written up, laneway suites are 1 unit. They can't be severed into 2 as of now, and they can't be severed from the original property that it sits in the rear of. So one of the topics I wanted to talk about is like why now is such an important time for investors to get into this space. Like, look, there's an appeal period that ends tomorrow on this last huge announcement that hit our airwaves on May 10th. There was a policy change on municipal level, and there was a zoning amendment in the city of Toronto that allowed single family homes to be converted to fourplexes. I don't think it's as of right, but what I do know is that they're waiving development charges that could be as high as $150,000 to $250,000. So from an investment standpoint, when you're looking at $150,000 to $250,000 rebate, that's the difference between your pro forma making sense and your pro forma being cash flow negative, right?
100%.
There was
And
a
for
more homes
that,
passed.
actually, sorry, I was just going to ask for that when you're talking about the development fees, does that also apply when you're creating additional dwellings in the existing home, or do those only apply when you're adding that extra auxiliary unit itself? Like building.
Both. Yeah, both. Yeah. So like the laneway suites, the laneway suite program was designed with the goal of adding density. So trying to make it as easy as possible, not having to go to a committee of adjustments for months and months on end. If you fit a certain criteria, if your property fits and meets a certain criteria, you can build it as of right, which essentially means like you have the same right to build a laneway suite in your backyard as you would painting your kitchen. Neighbors can't oppose it. NIMBYism, although it may be rampant in your neighborhood, will not stop you from putting up a laneway suite. And the government has tried to make it as easy and as cheap as possible to do so. The More Homes Faster Act that happened in November of 2022, that was the act that started allowing fourplexes as of right and waiving these development charges. What else is there?
Yeah, so then the development basically, just for the viewers to get the understanding, is basically, let's say generally we people who are working with existing houses, and for example, like sometimes we deal with only just the permits part. And so now you're saying that basically all the bylaws they've passed is now part of the permits area, and it's not having to go through any types of changes through the development. So we don't have any of that pre-work anymore because it's already been placed into just being considered part of the permits as long as you say they meet certain criteria.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, without getting too much in the weeds on it, and I think what I want to tell viewers, and I want to tell anybody that's watching this, I will make myself available to any kind of phone call that you want to have with me. We have like a pretty in-depth partnership, like on the planning side of things. I think the high level is they've made it cheaper and they've made it faster. And those are the two main things that I want to focus on. Development has become cheaper and faster in the city of Toronto. And those were the two main holdups that stopped developers such as myself from investing money in these fiveplexes, fourplexes, triplexes, right? It was just the city had been sucking the blood out of missing middle developers and small developers such as myself with high fees and lengthy development periods. You know, when we talk about money and investing, those are the two main things that we always want to be focusing on: timelines, because there's a cost of money, and fees that are associated with developing these things, because it makes it not financially viable when there's high fees, right? So let's just focus on those two things. It's cheaper and it's faster, right? So timing is incredibly important right now, because if the government decides to change, amend, eliminate any of these programs, you're going to miss that window of opportunity to own in the city of Toronto, develop in the city of Toronto, and create cash flowing multifamily rental properties in the city of Toronto.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's something that you, like you said, you do want to be a part of it, because especially if you can get it to cash flow, the future potentials just be even more amazing just for the fact of owning that property. I feel like you'll get that, appreciation like that, like you're saying. Like you don't want to bank on it, but it's nice to know that it's there, because I mean, Toronto is always a growing city. So I feel like you can't, you can't say that it's going to disappear. So it's just I feel like having a property in Toronto is amazing. And then if we can get it to cash flow, it's just even more. I feel like, especially for investors, it's amazing, because that's what really becomes very important for us, especially in these times where interest rates are going up and down, where you need to have something that cash flows so you can ride the wave of like the things that happen
Absolutely.
within the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, listen, there's other really interesting things that are happening to the city of Toronto right now that you should point out, which is the new Ontario line. Like, they are installing new subway lines and subway stations. We know where those are going to be. So investors, look at where these infrastructure projects are happening and buy real estate around there. 100%. Right? Like, in my opinion, the opportunities for real estate do not exist in the core of any major city. They exist in the surrounding neighborhoods that service the core of that major city. And then you don't want to go too far because you don't want to be in the suburbs. So from an investment standpoint, we have bought all of our properties. Our investment strategy needs to be 90-95% transit score, needs to have a 90-95% walk score, and you need to be at least, or at the most, I would say 250 meters away from either a 24-hour streetcar line or access to subway, or in the proximity of this new Ontario line, which is set to complete, I believe, in 7 years. Right? So real estate investors, with that 7-year horizon, we have been buying, and I encourage you to buy single family homes in those neighborhoods, convert them to fiveplexes, build them energy efficient, build them green, and you'll have a cash flowing property that will also appreciate like crazy over a 7-year window.
Awesome. And actually, now that you're talking about green, I would love to get into it. What are the different types of things that you're doing to make a house green?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we'll call them conservation measures. Everybody's familiar with the CMHC, and if you're not, feel free to reach out to me. But the CMHC started to provide incentives and different programs to reward people for building green developments, right? So There's a program called the MLI Select that offers some really, really lucrative financing solutions to people that want to build green. So what we're seeing a lot is solar arrays. We're seeing high efficiency lighting and control systems, high efficiency heating and cooling systems, gray water recovery systems, low expansion, high expansion spray foam solutions to building envelopes. I know
Question
I
for you.
mentioned,
What is gray
yeah.
water? I've never heard of that. What's gray water solutions?
So if you're in the city of Toronto right now, you're probably experiencing this rainfall that we're having today. But Gray Water Solutions is capitalizing and capturing water, like rainwater, for things like the back of the toilet, things like irrigation, just trying to use a lot of like the runoff of excess water to recover and recoup it for some domestic purposes.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I think I've even heard of solutions where it's used in dishwashers. It's mainly used for like toilet and low flow toilet applications. It wouldn't be used for shower. Shower is going to be fresh. Green roofs is another one.
Mm-hmm.
High efficiency windows. Thermo, or what if that would make sense? Sorry, I'm going to have to geothermal. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now.
No problem.
Geothermal solutions, right? So, which is where like, you dig down and you can have cheap heating in the winter and cheap cooling in the summer. So, I think it really goes back to the magic is understanding what projects work best for your development.
Mm-hmm.
Some projects are going to be great candidates for geothermal. Some it just financially wouldn't make sense. Some candidates or projects are going to be great candidates for photovoltaics, which is like solar arrays. Some of them, it just isn't going to make sense. Your returns aren't going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of really, really unique and interesting energy conservation methods being brought forth to the market right now. But the magic exists in understanding what works best for your project. So, what we offer and what we've been doing is energy modeling, which is during the planning process, as we'll work with your architect or working with your architect and engineers, designing at the planning what kind of heating and cooling systems, what kind of windows should we spec, what kind of building envelope material should we spec. We submit that to the CMHC, and assuming you win enough points or earn enough points in the MLI Select program, you can actually have your project qualify for very competitive interest rates amortized over a 50-year window. So that's the big thing. That's the big program that I've been kind of hinting and alluding at this entire like podcast or this entire discussion is this MLI Select program.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming you can target a 5-door development, you'll be considered commercial. You can build the fourplex as of right, and then you're going to build the laneway suite in the rear to give you that 5th door. But the magic mix to make this whole thing cash flow is building it green. So our projects have no greenhouse gas. We don't use natural gas. They're all electric 5plexes and they're high efficiency. And the government is rewarding us by extending a long amortization period of 50 years and by giving us very, very competitive interest rates. Like I believe that we have one project that we're actually still looking for partners on. We have one project right now where we've locked in either a 4 or 4.2% interest rate over a 50-year term. So, when you have net operating income of almost $200,000 a year, it's very easy to cash flow on these projects.
100%. And so, and just to make it clear for people, because I know you're saying it, and I want to make sure people understand, is that it has to be 5 units or more for you to be able to apply for the MLI Select. Is that right?
Yeah, because I mean, like you've heard me reference the highest and best use of capital and the highest and best use of land a few times. It has to be 5 units. So what river developments, what I focus on and what I've been doing for the last couple of years is buying single family homes in desirable neighborhoods that have a ton of upside and potential over a long enough period of time. So along future subway, future transit lines or future transit options, and converting them to 5plexes. That's what we do. We don't build 6 units and we don't build 4 units. We only build 5plexes. That's kind of our niche, and that's what we've been focused on doing. To take it one step further, I've been taking my passion for green construction and government rebates and government initiatives, and we've been building these things with environmental conscious practices in mind, and we've been rewarded handsomely for it. The government's rewarding us on a federal level and on a municipal level for these green initiatives that we're taking. And the tenants love it too. The tenants will love living in a green building. They'll love living in something that doesn't have or a lower carbon footprints, no greenhouse gas emissions. So
yeah,
that's
especially
it.
like that. Like the minds of people are changing a lot where they want to try to take care of the earth in whatever way they can. And so I think it's amazing that, you know, that these kind of things are coming out to more incentivize people to get involved, because it definitely does help. Because like that, I mean, even I feel like maybe 5-10 years ago or something, green initiatives didn't make sense. Or even like that, the solar panels, for example, on the roofs. I know people would be like, oh, I want to do it, especially as a business, like, oh, you want to do it, but it would never make sense just because the technology was so new still. So it's nice that the governments are coming in to help out, to be able to put all these different types of things in, because like you said, like now, you know, it may make more sense, and it'll bring a lot more people who did want to do it but just couldn't see it making sense, now being able to see how it makes sense, especially if they hire someone like you to be able to actually run the numbers and see exactly how it is going to happen. Because that is also, I feel like, the hardest part, especially that this is so new, these programs and incentives are so new, that for someone that's new getting into it, like how do you even evaluate something like that? So it's nice that there's someone like you that has experience in other areas, but like knows enough that you can easily figure out how it will work with the new programs that they have now.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of some of these conservation measures have come down. The government rebates have gone up, but yeah, to your points, it's kind of the perfect storm that is happening right now, where these things financially make sense and they're viable. And from an investor standpoint, and an investment standpoint, when you're starting to see anything that has like under a 3-year ROI, it's a really, really good investment. It's a really, really good use of capital. When you combine it with the fact that it's backed by an asset class like real estate, that makes it a lot better of an investment, right? So everybody's always heard the expression high risk, high reward. And you should be very wary of somebody that tells you that there's no risk, high reward.
100%.
However, there's a very unique opportunity that's happening in the city of Toronto right now with real estate, which we all know is very moderate to low risk, and the rewards seem to be relatively high. I would say that they're medium to high rewards on a long-term investment. And the reason why that's happening is this environment that is creating government rebates, government initiatives, not only around housing solutions and the missing middle, but also because Canada is so progressive and forward thinking on energy efficiency and the environment. So when you take those two things together, and if you understand how they work together, you will have a very low risk, moderate to high reward scenario right now. And I just think it's a great place for people to start, you know, focusing on and paying attention to, right? Like people that live in Ontario want to invest in Ontario. They don't want to take their money typically and either leave the country or leave the province. And right now, you know, you have a chance to have your money working for you in the city of Toronto. For those listeners that, you know, live in the city of Toronto, how cool would it be to own a multifamily rental in the city of Toronto? And for those listeners like around Canada, I still think that Toronto has very strong fundamentals to it. And I think it's going to be the New York City in 20 years from now, or Toronto is the New York City 20 years ago. And having a chance to own multifamily rental properties in the city will be incredibly lucrative.
100%. And it's very interesting because I was just also even thinking, for example, people just naturally don't like change. So I'm just thinking, you know, imagine like you have a single family home or you're in an area of single family homes, like you're saying, and now switching those to 4 and 5 units. But you're saying since they don't have to go through the development, because usually that's the area where people can stop you at, which is what you were saying earlier. Now they don't even have that opportunity. So they're forcing people to change too, you know. Like now they don't even have that opportunity to like debate it as long as they're meeting the requirements. They're gonna have to accept it, which I guess the good and the bad, which I would say, if anything, just from my experience and hearing other people, it's definitely making sure that I feel like those kind of scenarios kind of bring also problems with the neighbors because they'll want to complain. And I feel like being very sure that you're doing everything to code or the way it has to be done will be very, very important in also those scenarios because drastic changes bring drastic changes in people too.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, like, look, you can build these things. I don't think the correct paraphrasing is you can build them as of right. But the city is now pushing these fourplexes through in neighborhoods where you could have never ever done it before, right? You no longer need to buy on main arteries or like the uglier streets. You can buy on these beautiful tree-lined streets where people want to live. And you can buy single family home and convert it to a fourplex and then throw the laneway suite in the rear. And voila, you're now the owner of a commercial multifamily property in the city of Toronto. So I know I haven't really highlighted this a lot, but our value add is working with investors and bringing them these opportunities to the table. We build these things, we manage these things, these projects, and we're always looking for partners. We're always looking for creative thinkers that kind of want to get into this space, whether you are a real estate owner and you're looking for ways to unlock value or unlock density in the property that you own, or if you're just a real estate investor and you're looking for a passive way to have a great investment that's backed by real estate in the city of Toronto that also produces cash flows, we'd love to talk with you.
Love it. Love it. Thanks so much for coming on. Any other final, I felt like that was like final words, but any last other final words before we're ending this?
Yeah, just listen. If we are thinking just about investments from an investor standpoint, always keep your eyes and ears open for unique opportunities. Mark my words, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity with these rebates and incentives and government support right now. You need to take advantage of these things because all it takes is one program to end or one government to kind of change hands or appeal a decision, and this window of opportunity closes. Right. Owning the city of Toronto is a great place to invest. And yeah, right now there's some really, really unique chances to own cash flowing multifamily real estate.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I also loved before you were saying also about the creativity piece, which I feel like as being an investor, you know, I feel like us as investors, we love it. You know, when new changes happen and then you start bringing out the creativity, how to use it and just see what you can do with it. So I think definitely, I feel like lots of people will be masterminding, like you said, to figure out how you can use this the best, or like if we're not seeing solutions work, brainstorming, because there is a way. It's just you haven't thought of it because it's something new that we're all just that's coming in now and trying to figure it out. So thank you so much for coming on, Jayden. It was so much fun to chat with you and learn about this. And if you guys love what you heard, then please send us some love, like the video, and also Jayden will be tagged on there. So if you guys want to see what projects he's up to, he will be tagged on this. And if you guys love what you hear from here and you're on YouTube, then go over to my Facebook group, the Real Estate Investor District, and you'll also see this video there too. And you can see what else I'm up to in that group. Thank you, Jayden. It was so much fun to chat with you. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see everyone in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Have a great week.